Hi, I'm John J. Murphy, and I welcome you to the Change Mastery Show with my co host, Dr. Pat. Together, we invite you to think differently about change, not as something to fear or resist, but as a powerful opportunity for growth, empowerment, joy, and life mastery. My vision? To help millions of people shift from victimhood to leadership, from ego to spirit, and from hesitation and resistance to flow. This is an opportunity for you to get out of your own way and experience life with more courage, confidence, humility, and higher purpose. Get ready. The Change Mastery Show starts now.
Everybody, welcome to the show. I'm Dr. Pat, and I get to take this amazing, beautiful journey with John, of course. Today's episode is Defining Moments, the decisions that shape your future. Now, John, drawing from several of, I think, his 20 plus books, he's going to take us on this journey. He's going to challenge us, the viewers, the co-host, to identify these defining moments, these moments in our lives that had an impact on our internal stories, those stories we tell ourselves, right? This defining moment, what is it? What does it mean to you? John's going to walk us through it. One thing you should keep in mind, defining moments, they're almost like, I want to use the word androgynous, but that's probably not a good word. Some people think that they're this or they're that. They could be all of the above: positive, negative, productive, destructive, whatever that story is you tell yourselves. But then there are the incidences in life: the divorce, the job loss, the breakup, the turn you should have made left, but you went right. So today, we're going to talk about what those internal stories are. We're going to talk about from where John sits, and this is such a very important body of work, is we can carve out an entire life in a victimship mode. And we can do that. And we can do that very easily. You don't have to buy it. You don't have to get a course on it. But how do you understand it? John, what a great topic today, because I think the understanding is so important to this, because so often in defining moments, we do not think that we were active players, period. A lot of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Well, I like to think of it working backwards. You are where
Yeah.
you are, and whatever state you're in right now, if you're in a happy state, every day is just absolutely beautiful. You wake up, you can't wait to do what you do. Evidently, you've learned over the course of years to turn any situation into a positive one, because positive brings more positive. So if we live in an absolute ideal state right now, and I do actually, I wake up every day, I couldn't be more grateful. I call it bliss. I really feel like I have a life of bliss right now. Doesn't mean you don't have, you get skinned up a little bit. You have those days where you're like, okay, now what do I do? The key is, whatever has happened, you got two choices, really. Do you see it as a positive, or do you see it as a negative? And like you said, do you come out of it feeling like a victim, ready to blame something external, or do you come out of it feeling like a champion? Like, what can I learn from this? How can I turn this into something positive? And I often say we gain wisdom from experience. You don't gain wisdom from a textbook or going to a classroom. No, you gain wisdom from experience. And, we've had all kinds of, I've had, we'll talk about it, all kinds of experiences people would call negative, or, a
Yeah.
failure. And I've decided not to see it that way, whereas I could. And if I had, I really feel like I'd be living a dismal life right now. I'd be frustrated. I'd be pointing fingers. I'd be thinking, the government's corrupt. The earth's falling apart. People are mean to, people are sinners, whatever. I'd see all kinds of darkness because I'd have darkness going on inside me. And, we tend to see what we are. So you and I've talked about this before. If we define the world as chaotic, there's something going on inside us that's chaotic. It's conflicted. And when we learn to do the inner work And we really stop and before we judge or criticize anything, we contemplate. I love the practice of contemplation where you're neutral, basically. And you're like, okay, my wife just filed for divorce and shocked me and surprised me after 26 years and four beautiful kids. And how am I going to handle that? Okay, or I just found out, I'm being downsized and I'm losing my job. What am I going to do about that? By the way, those are two examples in my life right there, you
You and me
know?
both. Yeah, not the
Yeah.
divorce part, but the down. So yeah, yeah, John, I've been fired from every job I've ever had. Why do you think I'm self-employed?
Yeah. Well, actually, I look at that even and I say, okay, I started my company 38 years
Yeah,
ago and I get fired every year.
yeah, no
What do you mean?
kidding.
John, what do you mean you get fired every year? Well, roughly, because I'm a consultant and I go in and I do my job. And if I do it well, I leave. I don't hang around and just collect money. And I go in and I teach people how to replace me, basically. Now that takes a lot of courage because then what are you going to do? But again, through experience, you gain wisdom, and wisdom tells me you're going to get something even better.
Mm,
You're going to get a new contract it's even better. Or maybe you're going to take, if you've got a little bit of space between contracts, why don't you write a book?
yeah,
Why don't you go out and give some keynotes? Why don't you expand and explore? And then COVID hits, okay? Turning point for a lot of people, defining moment. What are you going to do? Just sit around and pray? That's not a bad idea, but you got to do more than that. So, all of a sudden I'm like, I can't get on an airplane. I can't travel to a client. I'm frozen essentially in terms of business. So what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to learn something called Zoom, I guess. Yeah, I'm going to learn how to teach online. I'm going to create, ebooks and I'm going to, create mastery labs. I have a mastery lab right now that's rolling out. I'm gonna find a way to be productive when I could be afraid. I could be, where did this virus come from? This is horrible. This is the worst. My mother died from COVID,
yeah.
Now
Oh,
she was in memory care, and so it was actually a blessing in a sense because we really didn't know what was going on, but
mm,
COVID got into her facility and she couldn't breathe. Um, Now I could be really bitter about that. There's a defining moment, I lost my mother and I lost my father in the year 2000. So 26 years ago, he got deathly ill with a form of cancer and and passed at 68 years old. I mean, I'm almost 68 right now myself, and it's kind of shocking to think about life that way.
yeah,
But you know what? Every moment, incidentally, when my father passed, I he had tried experimental chemotherapies. It was really the chemo, I think, that killed him. So as a researcher and a business consultant, spending many years and I don't know how many hours, countless hours researching in business global best practices and things that are benchmark organizations, things like that, where I can bring value to my clients. I shifted. I still did that,
mhm,
but I shifted a lot of my research to natural alternatives in health. And we did an episode on aging a while back, and I recently had my internal age measured, and it turns out I'm 33, half my age really. And no, I mean you could argue, well, I don't know how accurate that is, or this or that or whatever, but you know, um, I learned things because of my father's passing that I do to this day. Therapies, contrast oxygen training, cold plunge, neurofeedback, brain training. I mean, all kind of electroceutical training, yeah, I don't won't go into all the details on that, but having played football a long time ago and getting banged up, concussions, things like that, I was diagnosed with epilepsy a few years ago. I mean, I'd freeze up in the middle of a speech, or I couldn't drive for over a year until I proved I no longer had these seizures through all kinds of training and help. But I, um, I just look at everything as a way
Yeah,
to get smarter and learn. And then I
yeah,
believe, Dr. Pat, that when we share knowledge, we share whatever it is we have to share of value. By giving it, we receive more. It's karmic law, and we've talked about law of attraction and law of allowance, things like that. So I believe that everything I've had in terms of a defining moment is an opportunity for me to take the higher road, if you will. I call it play
yeah,
like a champion. So
yeah.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. And I love that we're talking about this because I hope the people that are watching this and listening to this understand this is not just you and John and I that can do this. You know, we've we've let me speak for myself. I've had to do a little work and learn a few tools to get here so that I don't talk about my mom's suicide when I was age 6 the way that most people would. And people look at me, John, and they say, "You're just Pollyanna Patty." And I say, not really. I mean, I have a perspective on it. I would have never gotten the stepmom I got, who taught me more things than anybody could imagine. I would
Yeah,
have never gotten my brother. I mean, and I do believe Mama Doris is what I'm going to call her. She was the optimist of the century. This is a woman, John, had her first child at 12, second child at 13, basically raped by her, let's call him a husband. Never did I hear a foul word about him. When
wow.
you talk to her, she was grateful for everything. And I'm telling you, she is the one that helped shaped. As I had two mothers, one of them taught me how to love deeply. The other one taught me how to be of the world and love the world deeply. And what a blessing. Now, if we can help people today understand that these moments, just as they are defining moments. But to your point in this episode, they can shape our future. But how they shape our future is what the heck, John, we are talking about today, right?
That's right. Yeah. And here's what matters most is, what do you think right now? Because you can't undo these
Yeah.
moments in the past, right? But you can change the way you think about them. And if you think about them in a more positive way, all right, you change your vibration, you change your frequency. And like frequencies attract like frequencies. So, misery loves company. If you go through life with a miserable victim kind of consciousness, you're just calling for more misery. All right. But if you can learn to shift, some people call it shift happens. If you can learn to shift your mind from,
Mm,
as I reflect back on that, accident that I had, or that illness that I had, or that divorce, that loss of a job, if it's negative. Because you could also just look back and just say, let me just forget about the negative stuff for a minute, and let me think about some of the positive things that's happened in my life. And we probably both had conversations. I won't bring up names and things like that,
yeah.
but people close to me have said to me when I talk to them, they bring up negative things from the past. And I'm like, why don't we talk about something positive? You know, oh, this. You
There
remember
you
when
go
this
again,
happened?
John.
So when I talk about a story, an internal
Hmm.
story, if
Yeah.
your story is not positive and enthusiastic, and your vibe isn't positive, enthusiastic, why don't you change it? Why do you drag around all that baggage when you can change it? And so that's where, one of the defining moments for me, and again, it can be positive or negative, but one of them that was kind of mind-blowing for me, and we've talked about this before, is when I, after 9 years of not writing any books, after writing several books prior to
Mm.
that, when my father passed in the year 2000, I was halfway through writing a book and I just froze kind of. I just stopped And for 9 years, I didn't write anything. So I continued doing my consulting work. And I was doing a week-long event in France, outside Lyon, Bourgogne, France. And the following week, I was actually doing a week-long event up in England. But I had a weekend in between. And I woke up on a Saturday morning and with really nothing to do. I was going to go wander around and, practice my French and look at cathedrals, whatever. But there was a very, very, very strong presence in my room, an energy. I even thought potentially it was my father somehow connecting with me, commanding me to start writing, not suggesting it, not asking, but no, you need to start writing again. And I resisted. I pushed back. That's a defining moment now, right there. I was like, I don't know what to write about. I'm busy. I don't want to start something I won't finish like last time. No, stop. But it wouldn't leave me alone. I
Mm,
don't know what it was, but I finally just said, look, you want me to write? Okay. Flip open my laptop and I said, tell me what to write. And I wrote a book, Beyond Doubt, Four Steps to Inner Peace, way out of my genre, if you will. I mean, I'm a business consultant with a finance degree. What what is this actually? But the defining moment, excuse me, is I gave in. I, I let I let go, so to
yeah.
speak. And actually, what I did is what the book's all about. So the four steps, as you know, are let be, let go, let see, and let flow. And it's iterative. So the more we do it, the higher we rise in terms of consciousness and awareness. So it's a practice. It's like Taoist, if you will. What goes around comes around. And the
Yeah.
more we practice it, the more blissful our life becomes. So now I had to let be, okay, I had to listen. I had to meditate a little bit and contemplate to write this book. And then I had to let go of all the resistance, all the doubt. I had to get beyond doubt, so to speak, and allow. And then guess what? I could see what to write, so to speak. So let be, let go, let's see. And I got into what a lot of athletes or artists, musicians call flow. You get into a
Mm,
state of peak productivity, state of timelessness. Hours go by and you don't even realize it. Intense focus and awareness. And I knock out this book. It becomes the most inspirational book of the year in Canada. In 2010, it was an award-winning book. And I didn't even know what I was doing, but that's a defining moment, Dr. Pat, not just because this book came out, but because it was right before my first divorce, which was game changing for me. I was
yeah.
devastated.
Yeah.
And now my wife hired a very aggressive, let's just say assertive lawyer. And, I get this kid that shows up on a Saturday morning and knocks on the door and I open it and he goes, good luck, dude. And he hands me this envelope. I'm like, what is this? And it was like getting punched in the stomach.
Yeah.
But again, this is a let be moment because I could have just gotten, I don't know, think about it. I could have just gotten angry. Like I could have gotten suicidal and just said, "Oh my God, I'm going to go jump off the balcony." Um, no, I just had to contemplate, like, what does this mean? I don't understand. And my first instinct was, I guess you got to get a lawyer. I mean, I don't know anything about divorce, never even thought about it. And I guess I have to find a lawyer. And then, but I get online. I just like, I got to do something here. So I get online and I'm going through divorce for men. And what do you know? Pops up an ebook called No BS Divorce for Men.
Mm,
Like,
wow.
and
Wow.
the subtitle was something like, the 10 most common mistakes men make going through divorce or something like
No
that. I'm
kidding.
like, and guess what mistake number one was?
What?
Hire a lawyer. This is I
Whoa.
So guess what? For $45, I buy this book and download it. I read it like all day, and it said treat your divorce like the CEO of a company. Now I'm working with CEOs all the time, but what that meant was don't get emotional about it. handle it objectively, get yourself a team, a controller who knows something about finances and
Yep.
tax and estate planning and things like that. Get yourself somebody to help counsel you, so to speak, and just manage the situation constructively. Another moment, a defining moment for me, I sometimes call these moments of truth. But here's the other thing, is because of this book I had just channeled, I had to practice what I had just written. So what I discovered is I wasn't just writing this book for other people, which is why I write books. I guess I wrote it for me. So
Yeah.
I had to let be and just stay present and calm and meditative, contemplative, aware. I had to let go of any anger, any thoughts of revenge or conflict or fight. I'm going to fight you, fight this. Same thing with an illness. I'm going to fight this illness. Well, guess what? You're making it stronger because it's so counterintuitive to say, I'm going to let go of this cancer. I'm going to let go of this dis-ease, and I'm going to become easy and relaxed and allow my intelligent body and my intelligent cells to heal. Now that's mind over matter, but I've been through mind over matter,
Mm.
scheduled for surgery, and then the surgery isn't necessary because what I had went away.
That's right.
That's,
I love
I mean,
that
I'm
one.
not,
That's a
yeah,
good one. Yeah.
yeah, I'm not making it up. In
No.
fact, at the time, I told the MD, I said, before I commit to surgery, I'm going to try something different. He said, what? And I said, let's just call it energy healing. He's he starts like laughing. And this guy, was kind of a friend. Actually, he was a friend, not a close friend, but we played
Hmm.
football together a long time ago, and he became
Hmm.
an MD. And he's like, good luck with that, man. And then I come back to him, I don't know, 3 months later, and it's gone. It was a hernia. And there was no question. It was at that time, I don't know if they treat hernias any other way now. It always required surgery. And by the way, I had a hernia, another defining moment in my life when I was a sophomore in high school, and I was in the hospital for 6 days. Back then, I mean, they slice you open and it's a
Oh
really
yeah.
big deal. Now
Yeah.
they go in and do it, I guess in a much outpatient or whatever. But back
Yeah.
then, that was a really big deal. So I know what a hernia is, and I had it diagnosed and I use emotional freedom technique, which we've talked about before. I used mindful healing, meditations, things like that, Taoist healing meditations, and this thing just disappeared. And like, how about that?
Yeah.
So anything, and whether it's that divorce, I just decided, why get angry? So guess what? I never did hire a lawyer. I found myself correcting her lawyer on things on legal matters. Why? Because this book had links. It was an ebook. So if you live in Michigan, which is where I lived, click this link to understand child support. Click this link
Wow.
to understand how many mediations you have to go to. Okay. And I, actually, I got on the elevator with her lawyer. One time after the first mediation. You could think that's a pretty awkward moment. And you know what I did? I said, thank you. She's like, what do you mean, thank you? I said, look, I know you're doing your job and you're looking out for my wife, and I love her. So thank you. She was dumbfounded. She didn't know what
Nope.
to say. We're supposed to be enemies. You're not an enemy. My wife's not an enemy. I don't want enemies. So, and guess what? You know what? I went through the divorce pretty mildly, let's just say. I never had a lawyer. I took my wife to the courthouse for the final signings and all that stuff, and then I took her out for lunch. Now
Yeah.
that's a little bit odd, I guess, when you could otherwise be incredibly angry, incredibly hurt. Oh my God, what are we gonna do with the kids and this and that? And nope. And so when I look back on my relationship, it was 26-year marriage. I only see positive.
Yeah.
I only see positive. And sadly she doesn't. If if we were happy 99% of the time, she'd see the 1%.
Yeah.
When I
Yeah.
wasn't home, I was out working when the pilot light went out in the furnace, you know, and you know,
Yeah.
you
And
weren't
because
here.
John, yeah, you weren't here. And you know what I love about this story? And I love about that story you just shared, because I want people to understand it doesn't matter what's going on in your life, what John is talking to you about, you are the person that can navigate that. You see, people think, well, maybe I should get somebody else to navigate my stuff. Look, we all go through things in life, right? And, I was getting ready for this show, and something popped up. Not the move to New Jersey. I get a lot of grief about the move to New Jersey. People are like, why did you move? I'm like, I love New Jersey. What are you talking about? What I don't know what you're thinking. But there was a defining moment when I was 19 years old. This was seriously defining. Okay, John, I wasn't the best teenager. Can I just say that? But I'm not going to go into it. I just want to say that. But I got pulled over in my red Beetle, 61 Beetle at the time, hippie looking girl with the Jimi Hendrix fringed jacket. My car looked like everybody was sleeping in it. The cop pulls me over in Plainfield, and he just starts to go through my car, like rummaging through my dirty bags in the back. I mean, honestly, dude, what are you looking for? So what do? I don't sit there like I'm told to do. I get out of the car and I think I'm going to intervene with him. And so I reach over to really try to say, don't go through my car. My Jimi Hendrix, beautiful suede, long fringe jacket catches the edge of his gun, wraps itself around his gun. And so as he pulls me away, what do you think he thinks I was doing?
Yeah,
I'm not going to
should.
go into the whole story, but here's the bottom line. They give me a public defender. I'm in court, and this public defender wants me to lie. He comes up with a cockamamie story. I mean, it was honestly, John, I didn't think I was going to be able to remember it. And I remember being in court, and this is the defining moment. And the judge, do what they do, and they're la 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 la. What's your blah blah defense, right? Cop is sitting over there. I'm sitting there. I got the jacket, and he starts to talk, and I stand up and say, "Judge, he's wrong. That is a bold-faced lie. I want to tell you the truth." That's the defining moment.
Mhm.
And I went through the very long version of that story. I had the Jimi Hendrix jacket. I was going to demonstrate it. I had put it on, started to walk towards the cop. And of course, he's starting to bang on the thing. I'm 19, John. Come on. Here's what he said to me. I mean, that's a felony, by the way, just in case people are wondering. Like, if that goes down like that, he said, look, you are either the stupidest person. I have been on the bench for 35 years and I have put away some very bad people. And you are either the stupidest person that has ever walked in my court, or you're telling the truth. And there was a pause. And he said, I don't think you're stupid. And I think you're telling the truth. He gave me a charge that's called offering to engage in an argument with an officer. It's a misdemeanor. But
Yeah.
I,
Well,
I would bet you money that if I would have let that attorney tell some cockamamie story that was just like, I'm not sure it would have turned out like that. But what is it that gets us to do those things, John? Let's talk about that for a minute. Um, I want
well,
to
one
take a
is
short
courage. Yeah. You want to take a break? Yeah.
I want to take a short break, but I also want to get back to what you said about let go and flow. Because we have these moments, and sometimes it happens so naturally with us that we don't recognize we're in the process. We don't recognize we're contemplating this idiotic situation we're in, right? But what
Yeah.
do we believe on the inside? Did I believe that if I tell the truth, this would work out just fine? Did I believe that? Do I believe in silver linings?
Mhm.
Do I believe there's solutions? When we come back, I want to talk about one of the most important things that I think we could talk about today about these stories. And then I want to help people turn to feet. How do you turn these moments in life just the way you described How can someone listening to this do that? And it doesn't have to be a job loss or a divorce or an arrest. How about if you've been rejected by 35 universities for a doctorate? How do you turn that around? What's your next move? Let's take a short break. But before we do, John, would you mind just telling folks how they can find out about what you're doing, how to get your books, all of the above?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, my website's johnjmurphy.org, and you see all my body of work there, the books, everything. And I'm also on LinkedIn more than anything else. So it's John J. Murphy Mystic on LinkedIn. I invite people to connect with me there. I have a YouTube channel, John J. Murphy, author John J. Murphy, with like 400 free, videos on it on all kinds of stuff. So really, probably those three. I also invite people to look at myfuel.io. I'm a faculty member at a company called Fuel. And the coolest thing now is I have an AI twin. So people can get 24/7 coaching in dozens of languages from me at, $1 a day. It's hardly anything
Wow.
from my chat bot. It's a bot. It's you role play with it, you ask it questions, and you're
Ah,
getting my answers, not internet answers. You're
I love
getting
it.
it's downloaded with 40 almost 40 years of my work, all my books, everything. So it's one of the coolest things coming. And again, here AI, I know we're going to take a break, but AI is scaring the heck out of a lot of people. Oh my God, it's going to replace me, especially if you're in consulting. It's like, why don't I just go to this, AI? Why do I need John Murphy? And but this is an opportunity to turn John Murphy into a global coach in
Exactly.
multiple languages with perfect recall. So when you ask me a question, you're getting a Murphy answer, and it's just remarkable. And I've played with this bot, and I've asked it questions, and it answers sometimes like, "Wow, I don't even remember that story or that case study or that example. Oh, and by the way, it's answering in Japanese or it's answering in German." And it's just remarkable. So myfuel.io, and you see me as an instructor. You can get a 7-day free trial. That's really cool too.
I love it. And let's talk about that when we come back too. I want to say this before we go to break. I said the word defeat into victory, but I want to be very clear. I'm not talking about everybody having experiences like John and I have, right? Defeat is defined by the story you're telling yourself. And it doesn't have to be being arrested or a divorce. You see, sometimes we see defeat in the strangest of places, in the corners of our lives, just like cockroaches live there. See that? But once you see them, do you actually know what to do? You see, it could be something as simple as feeling defeated about the way you look, the clothes you put on. It doesn't matter. If it's taking control of your future, John's going to help us with that when we get back. We'll be right back.
Have you ever faced a situation where you weren't quite sure how to handle it with poise, confidence, and grace? Of course you have. We all have. Well, tune in to the Change Mastery Show with me, John J. Murphy. Together, my co-host, Dr. Pat, and I will introduce you to a different way to think about change. Not as something to fear or resist, but as a gift. Join us the second Wednesday of every month at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. Subscribe, share, and start your journey to mastery at johnjmurphy.org.
We are all born with gifts that we are meant to use to improve the world. Join me, Vicki Todd, and Dr. Pat on Shine Delusion Shine, the radical art of dreaming beyond boundaries, each fourth Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. Shine Delusion Shine is a springboard to believing, dreaming, and thinking beyond the ordinary, and a catalyst to living a more fulfilling, destiny-driven life. For more information, visit vickyworldart.com.
Have you ever faced a situation where you weren't quite sure how to handle it with poise, confidence, and grace? Of course you have. We all have. Well, tune into the Change Mastery Show with me, John J. Murphy. Together, my co-host, Dr. Pat, and I will introduce you to a different way to think about change. Not as something to fear or resist, but as a gift. Join us the second Wednesday of every month at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. Subscribe, share, and start your journey to mastery at johnjmurphy.org.
We are all born with gifts that we are meant to use to improve the world. Join me, Vicki Todd, and Dr. Pat on Shine, Delusion, Shine, the radical art of dreaming beyond boundaries, each fourth Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. Shine, Delusion, Shine is a springboard to believing, dreaming, and thinking beyond the ordinary and a catalyst to living a more fulfilling, destiny-driven life. For more information, visit vickyworldart.com.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. You know what? Okay, so what are we talking about here? Defining moments, the decisions that shape your future. John J. Murphy, I'm Dr. Pat. And before the break, I said, we're going to talk about this thing that we call defeat. How do you turn defeat into victory? But I also want to remind you to go to My Fuel. Somebody just texted me. I'm going to say it again. myfuel.io. Right, John?
Yep.
Not the com, the IO. That's where we want you to go. Take a look at the shows. Look at you got the coach out there. Just take a look. Why? Because John and I are not afraid of AI. And, we could probably do a whole show on how we look at our AI. But let's talk about defeat. You know that commercial that was the sports commercial? The agony of defeat. You remember that with the guy coming down the hill and just crashing like a crazy person, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you
the
can't
thrill.
forget that.
Yeah, it was the
The thrill of
thrill of
victory. And then
victory
the
and the
guy
agony
comes
of
down.
defeat.
Oh my God, it's the worst accident. No, actually, Lindsey Vonn was the worst accident I've ever seen. But let's talk about it because there are 50 shades of defeat, John. You want to talk about how we can turn this? How do we overcome some of the most significant setbacks we have in life?
I'm going to suggest one word, and it's called mindset.
Oh,
It's
yes,
it's
yes.
it's mindset. Mindset, matters. And here's another quick illustration. And I've talked about this a lot. It was a defining moment in my life, absolutely. But when I was 17 years old, and we had just won the state championship in Michigan. In fact, I'm going back to the 50-year reunion of the state championship team in October up in Michigan. Anyway, um, coming off the state championship, I'm elected a captain. I'm the quarterback, and I run my foot through a lawnmower on a lawn. It's landscaping business I started and owned, and with a couple other guys. Devastating in the hospital for 7 days. A couple of major surgeries. Had to wire my foot back together, things like that. And the doctor, a very renowned orthopedic surgeon, he was involved in inventing artificial joints. This is, over 40 years ago. Anyway,
Wow.
tells me my football career is over, and it was one of my dreams was to play football, ultimately professionally, and just devastated. And so a defining moment right there. What were my options? Well, one option was to believe him. He said I'd probably never walk again without limping. I could have played victim. I could have blamed the lawnmower. I could have blamed the lady who asked me to chop down a bunch of tall grass in her backyard full of rocks so she could throw a lawn party. That's not a normal part of our routine. And I tripped over a rock. And anyway, um, devastating. All right, devastating. And instead of believing the doctor, my grandfather sent a book, and it was a book about courage, and it featured a guy named Rocky Blyer, whose foot was destroyed in Vietnam. But then he went on to win 4 Super Bowls with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that defining moment, think about it. If my grandfather hadn't sent me that book, I would have probably never known Rocky Blyer's story. Talk about an internal story, which was changed my story. So instead of believing the doctor and how stupid could I be? I mean, I really blew it. I'm an idiot. Um, People are mad at me. The coaches are mad at me. I chose the road less traveled, if I can quote Robert Frost for a minute, and it made all the difference. And I decided I'm not giving up. And because I was the captain of the football team, I suited up actually for every game and led the team in calisthenics. Now I'm wearing a boot basically, and I'm out there hobbling around, like Quasimodo, and people could have laughed at me, maybe they did. Um, but I chose the road less traveled. I chose I'm gonna lead, and I'm gonna be positive, and I'm going to get through this. And the irony is that I could barely walk, and
Mm.
2 years later, I walked on the Notre Dame football team.
Wow.
And I tapped that famous sign that says "Play like a champion" today. I earned my varsity letter in 2 years at Notre Dame. I got into Notre Dame academically. It wasn't a football scholarship.
Hmm.
But I can't think of a more clear defining moment in my life, because talk about the road less traveled. I could have just gone way negative, way south, just like, yeah, how could you be so stupid? And that
Yeah.
attitude, Dr. Pat, probably would have ruined my life.
Yeah.
And the fact is, I never made it into the NFL, and I didn't even play much at Notre Dame. But that experience, and going back to leading my own team in high school, out on the field, and by the way, the very last game of the year, the coaches actually let me play. And people were aghast. My parents were aghast. They're like, "Oh my
Uh,
God!" And the doctors were like, "Are you out of your mind?" But I not only did I play, I started the game, and we won 26-0, and they even let me run the ball. And I looked like, I don't know, Quasimodo, just. But this a defining moment, mind over matter. So we go back to your point. It's got to start with the mind, and so people are like, "Well, how do I turn a defeat into victory?" Start by looking at it differently. And the first question I'd ask is, what did you learn from it? And the other thing we've talked about is examine your I ams. When you say, what are your, give me 20 I ams, and somebody says, well, I am not that bright, or I am 10 pounds overweight, or I am out of shape. I am just not capable of doing that. Look, those are not going to help you. But when you wake up and you say, I am grateful for what I have, I am loved by people around me, and I am capable of a lot more than I think I'm capable of. And I am on my way to my dream or my bliss.
yeah.
I am those I ams, which are your internal story, are essential. So when you can say, I am positive, I am smart, all right? I am loved and I am loving. I am forgiving and I am forgiven. I am um, the most positive person, you can find. Now you've got to repeat that over and over and over again, because if it's just words and not
Hmm.
beliefs, it's going to wash off.
Yeah.
So the more we think a thought, the more it becomes a belief, and the more we believe it, the more it manifests into our reality. And so I love what Dr. Joe Dispenza says. He says, what fires together, wires together. He's a brain specialist.
Yeah.
And so those neurons are firing. And so whatever it is we're thinking, we're wiring into our habitual mind, our subconscious mind, and then that just plays out. It runs over 95% of our life, which we've talked about. So the subconscious mind is our habitual mind. It's always in the present. It can't think about the past, and it can't think about the future. The conscious mind can. So the conscious mind is looking at the past. What does it see, positive or negative? Look at the future. What does it see, positive or negative? That conscious mind is essential to manage. Problem is, a lot of people let their mind manage them, their
Yeah.
mind control them. and we're sovereign. We are the king or queen of our own kingdom, and our kingdom is our mind. And so when we tell our mind, look for the positive in the past or the future, allow those thoughts to wire into the subconscious. Because I'll tell you what, another thing that know about defining moments is that they become subconscious programs. And so we just replay them because the subconscious mind can't do anything but replay what's wired into it. So
Hmm.
it's going to replay. Now, another big defining moment for me is the day I discovered that I am worthy because I
Mm,
grew up going through a Catholic church, a Catholic family, every week being told I'm a sinner, I'm
yep.
not worthy. I have to go to sit in this box and tell the priest that I had a dirty thought or I said a bad word, just programming. That's programming. And then I'm accident prone. I mean, I've broken all kinds of bones and all kinds of stitches and things like that. Um, I actually believed that I was essentially a loser and I wasn't worthy. Another defining moment for me, Dr. Pat, is when I actually got my first girlfriend. Like, I thought I was, this little freckled faced, people called me a carrot top, and a skinny little guy. And I just, early in my life, I really felt like I was second best, if not last. And then here's another defining moment. When I ran my foot through that lawnmower and I had this big cast on my leg, one of the prettiest girls in high school signed my cast
Mm,
with the word love. John, I
wow.
hope you recover quickly. Love, Wendy. Her name was Wendy. And I just felt like, what? Wow. What?
Yeah.
Wow. Right? Um, so again, it starts with mindset. And we can control our mind. And I challenge people, don't let it control you, especially if it's running on negativity and victim consciousness, scarcity consciousness. If we believe in scarcity, we're actually asking for more.
Yeah.
We're asking for more scarcity.
Yeah.
So try on abundance. So I am not scarce I'm not, you know, uh, suffering from loss. I'm smarter because of the loss.
Yeah.
I'm growing. Yeah.
John, I love that you brought that up because I want to talk to people right now for a minute because and thank you for sharing that story. That that is why you are who you are because you have the experience to share with people, but you also have the transformation to share and the transformation of the mind. I'm like you. I have right in front of me right now my list of I ams. That's how I start my day. And people say, "Really? You do?" I said, "What do you mean, really? You have to you go through a list of." I said, "Of course I do. Actually, they're at my desk." So I go through them a lot of times a day. But part of this conversation too for people is for everyone to understand that we can navigate the mindset. We don't have to go ask 15 people on Facebook to navigate your mindset for you, but we do. But we can do this. And what you talked about, let be, let go, let see, let flow. I mean, this is the work you do with people. But anyone listening to this show now can do this. So one of the things that I was struck by as I prepared for this is I was listening to somebody and you want to talk about scarcity. It's insidious. You know why? Because it doesn't show up like that. It doesn't say, John, I got to tell you, I really got scarcity. It doesn't. It shows up like, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills this month. Oh, and let me look at September because I don't know how I'm going to do that. Oh my God, did you see the price of milk? It just went up. I'm not going to be able to get milk for the next month. Maybe we should cut back. And, why don't we eat pork rinds? I mean, you understand, it isn't always saying that. And
Here's
once
the thing.
you see what I'm
Yeah.
saying, yeah,
Yeah. Well, the thing, people think of scarcity only in terms of money a lot of
yeah.
times, but it's way, way, way more than that. Because if you have a scarcity mindset, you don't have enough ideas to
Oh
be
my
truly creative, the creative person you are. You don't have enough loving relationships because you don't believe you're deserving enough. So the scarcity mindset is everything. It's not just about money. And here's the thing is when you have that scarcity mindset, you don't have money enough, so to speak. You don't have the loving relationships that you could have. You don't have the job that you could have. That's truly fascinating. It limits you in everything. So again, that's something to examine internally. I do EFT every day, emotional freedom technique.
Yeah.
We've talked about that on the show. And it's a way to reprogram any programming you have that's negative into positive. And I do it. I have my own way to do it beyond the prescribed way. And I learned from Nick Ordner. Nick has been on Dr. Oz. He's written the book on EFT. He's a great guy.
Mm.
But I actually expanded even further, and I do over 20 IMs in my practice. And these are things like I am creative,
Yep.
I am patient, I am discerning, I am wise, I am strong, I am powerful, I am resilient, I am creative, I am intelligent, I am bright, I am loving, I am kind, I am giving, I am generous, I am generating. Okay. I am enlightened. I am joyful. I am peaceful. I mean, I, I just wire that into my being. I'm deeply grateful. And when I talk about I live a life of bliss, it's because I've been doing this for like 20 years. And it's
Yeah.
just now become so natural to me that and I'll say this about the Ring of Peace. I think it's also helpful to understand if you do it backwards. And when I write about it in Beyond Doubt, the four steps to inner peace, when I write about it, I actually explain it backwards. So what I'm saying there is I say, think about a time when you were in flow. You were in a timeless, peak performing state. Maybe you were playing piano if you're a piano player. Maybe you were ice skating. Maybe you're playing ping pong. Doesn't matter. But you were just in the zone. Just think about that for a minute. How'd you get there? Is my next question. You had to see it. You had to see it in the mind's eye. You had to see yourself performing well. You had to see yourself in the zone to manifest that. You had to see it. If you saw negative, you're not getting there. Okay, you just no. You're going to manifest failure, so to speak. But if you see yourself, that doesn't mean you're always going to win, but you see yourself as a winner. Now, how do you see yourself that way if you've been programmed with a bunch of junk and a bunch of, limiting beliefs? You have to let go of those. So working backwards to get to flow, you got to see it. To get to seeing it, you got to let go of all the blinders and the nonsense and the crap you're carrying around with you. And you can use EFT and other tools to do that. These release techniques, drop it, and now all of a sudden you see things very differently. You don't see yourself as a loser. You see yourself as a growing, positive champion on your way to great victories. Drop all the nonsense. By the way, when you do that, physically you feel better, you look better, you have a different glow about you. You just it's a massive shift, if you will.
Yeah.
And it can happen very quickly or it can take a while. So now how do you let go and how do you know what to let go of? You got to let be. You got to be present. You got to wake up and really be on. You got to be honest. So I like to say let be. Use be to describe what you want to be. So it's like, the theme for this show is be the change, to quote Gandhi, be
Yeah.
the change you want to see in the world. Well, be the peace, be aware, be awake, be present, be mindful, be positive, be strong, be resilient, bounce back. That's let be. And so it's a practice. Like I said, the more we practice the ring and we go around and around and around, it's like if you turn it this way, it's like you ascend, like the Kundalini energy, you awaken. And it's just so powerful, Dr. Pat. I mean, like I say, ever since I
Yeah.
wrote that book, um, I've been channeling it. But the book also helped me understand things I'd done prior to the book to turn defeat, if you want to call it that, into victory.
Yeah.
And again, the more you practice it, the better you get. And when you start to really think about things if I had to go back and think about a defining moment um, where I chose the wrong path and I went down the dark, the dark rabbit hole. Well, you can come out of that, and you can
Yeah.
come out of it anytime you choose to by changing your mind about it. Okay. And I mean, that's really I think the most important theme for
Yeah.
this show today is identify those turning points in your life. Which way did they turn you? And back up from here. So you are who you are. You and I talked about this before the
Yeah.
show. We have the National Institute of Health says we have about 60,000 thoughts a day, and over 80% of them are negative. No wonder so many people are miserable. Why don't we, why don't you, every single one of those thoughts could go this way or that way, right?
Yeah.
We could think positive or think negative. And if we're thinking negative, well, there you go. We're just gonna go through life with an attitude, not a good attitude, let's put it that way.
Yeah, I love this. Thank you, John, for today. This is very, very powerful. And for people that are listening to this, again, John, tell folks how they can find about you. Thank you for talking about this because the stats are out. We're talking about it. We have the numbers. How many people are stressed? How many people feel defeated? How many people are depressed? How many people are lonely? I mean, we don't need the numbers anymore. We need the solution. And part of
Mhm.
what we're talking about here is we don't have to travel 3 million miles or sit on a mountain because it's right in front of us. So how do we find out more about what you're doing, John, and all of the above?
Yeah, we'll start with my website, johnjmurphy.org. In fact, I have a free ebook available to everybody, and the ebook is on a tool called the Five Whys. And the problem with root cause analysis is people don't go deep enough. And so you got a headache, you take an aspirin. Why do I have a headache? Oh, I don't know. I'm not getting enough oxygen to my brain. Here, take a pill. That does not solve the problem. But if you ask 5 level deep, why do you have poor circulation, not enough oxygen in your head? I have poor circulation. Why do you have poor circulation? Because you have inflammation. Why do you have inflammation? Because you're favoring one side. Why are you favoring one side? Because your hips are out of alignment. The problem's not your head. The problem is your hips. And until you fix your hips, by the way, if you ask why, again, you could say, well, you fell off your bicycle when you were 7 and you never got your hips back in line. Doesn't matter. But people,
Yeah,
we don't have a society like that. We have quick fixes,
yeah,
and the symptoms just keep coming back. So the free ebook is on the 5 Whys. It's a brilliant tool. And again,
excellent.
it's another tool I use all the time. Yep. Go to my YouTube channel too.
Yeah, all of the above, everybody. Thank you for tuning us in and turning us on. And maybe in the next show, we'll talk about this. At age 17, I knew I would get a PhD, not because I knew what it was, because I saw how happy the people were that had one. 33 years later, that dream came true. Not because I'm smarter than everybody else, because I never let go of it. It was embedded. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Change Mastery Show with John J. Murphy, an opportunity to uncover, explore, and experience the path of transformation and illumination. Join Dr. Pat and me on the second Wednesday of every month at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. Never miss an episode. Subscribe, like, and share with your friends. Connect with me on social media. And for questions, comments, or to explore my books and services, visit johnjmurphy.org. Until next time, be the change you want to see in the world.